Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the book launching for the book Travails, and Triumphs of Igorot Cordillerans in Europe. It's such a good day to see you all, and without so much further ado, let's begin with our words of welcome and acknowledgement of participants per country from our very own Manang Yvonne Belen.
Myra and co-members of the book committee, co-authors Kailian from Europe and the Philippines, our book reviewers, Miss Marilyn Magu and Miss Desa Aguilar, guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon to those in Europe. Good evening to those in the Philippines. We are gathered here this afternoon and evening to celebrate the birth of the first book of Igorot Cordillerans in Europe. In the book, we included two writers from the Philippines who are Igorot Cordillerans and have stayed in Europe or attended a conference we organized. The beginning of this book was in February 2020 and was supposed to be a souvenir book to be published in 2029. However, Evangeline Martinez of the UK commented that 2029 is too far away, and by that time, the book might be irrelevant. To have a collective effort on the book project, we invited Igorot Cordillerans in Europe to be a member of the book committee. So we have Kristine Kawi-Gorans from France, Myra Colis from the Netherlands, Cristina Moncado from the Netherlands, and me. And we have Lorena from Switzerland, and three from the UK. That's Wendy, Pooten Watan, Evangeline Martinez, and Grace Nabus. And I think I did not miss anyone. Anyway, to have a collective effort on the book project, we invited Igorot Cordillerans to be a member of the book committee. Oh, I said that already. When we discussed the title of the book, we came up with Travails, and Triumphs of Igorot Cordillerans in Europe. We decided on the content of each subject and made a call to submission in February 2020. Then came the pandemic of 2020 onwards, and we had a lockdown in the continent and in the UK. For the rest of us, this time offered an opportunity to write. Why travel? As Filipinos in the diaspora, travel is part of our story. Why did we leave the country, especially our Philippine Cordillera? How did we integrate into our host countries in Europe? How did our Igorotness and our indigenous and our being indigenous play a role in overcoming the challenges we were facing? Or do we have some travel narratives to share during any of our tours or holidays? Why Travails? Once we arrived in our host country in Europe, what obstacles and challenges did we face? Did we have issues on immigration, family adjustment, and mental health? How did we address these issues? What were our coping strategies? How did we enable ourselves to belong to a community of Igorot Cordillerans? In overcoming our travails, we had our triumphs. For the first generation, they have empowered themselves and have had a better quality of life for their family. For their second generation, some had issues of finding their identity, which they had to address. With these guidelines, we were able to inspire 35 authors to write stories and anecdotes and compose poems and songs. The authors are from Austria, Belgium, France, Greece, Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, and the Philippines. The members of the book committee became the editors. Myra Colis was in charge of the layout. The publishers were Igorot Cordillera, BIMAAC Europe, ICBE, and MABIKAs Foundation, the Netherlands. It took us 2.5 years 2 years and 8 months to publish the book. Since the book is a self-publication, it took us 2 months to request for pre-orders so we could pay the fees needed for printing, layout, and other costs. We printed 250 copies and they were all sold out. Some of us donated the book. This book, Travails, and Triumphs of Igorot Cordillerans in Europe, had its own journey. We were only able to publish it with the contributions of time, talent, and treasures of the authors. Thank you. Matagot-tagot ako am in. Long may we live.
Thank you very much, Manang
you.
Yvonne Belen, for the very comprehensive introduction of what we have done so far. And indeed, it's quite a milestone to be able to get it done within a span of 3 hard working years. Yeah, thank you, Yvonne, Manang Yvonne. And now to add to what Yvonne has mentioned, maybe like to ask Ms. Kristine Moncado to tell us more about the cover, like why is it looking like that, right? Actually, it's also on my background, but to tell more about the story behind the cover. Ms. Kristine Moncado?
Yep. Actually, we were looking for a cover that really defines everything in one shot. So I want to discuss or talk about it. The book cover, the wooden shield and the spear personify our predecessors' bravery and gallantry. The loincloth, oneness in the local language, symbolizes the Philippine Cordilleras. The woven multicolored threads represent the different ethno-linguistic groups of the 5 provinces, namely Benguet, Ifugao, Mountain Province, Abra, and Apayao, and Kalinga. The gong symbolizes our ancestors' prayers that guide us during our travels. It strengthens us as we cope with our travails and provide us joy as we triumph in our country of residence. Yet Europe is the yellow-colored map where the Igorot Cordillerans reside. So that's how simple the cover is, but it's so striking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manang Kristine. First, we would like to ask Ms. Dessa Aguilar to share with us her insights or input on what she thinks of the book after having a look at it, and I think having read the not the entire book probably, but at least some parts of it. But before I ask Dessa to share, that Dessa is the managing editor and she is also the publisher of the Filipino Expat magazine. It's based here in the Netherlands, but the circulation is all over Europe. And she works for a supply company in Rotterdam, and she is also a mother of a 5-year-old. So
Myra generously gave me a copy of the book. I've known Myra for quite a long time already. I think since 2013, also through the Filipino Expat magazine. And I think we've come a long way when it comes to motherhood and our projects. And she's now also has 2 kids and has triumph against quite a lot of struggle. I really appreciate receiving a copy of the book. It's a very good effort because I myself doesn't come from any tribe in the Philippines. I come from Marinduque, which is a very small island in southern Tagalog region. It's just between near Mindoro and Batangas. So we call ourselves the heart of the Philippines because it's in the center. But whenever also abroad, you also get to know people who are from your small island. So it's really a good effort to connect everybody, especially from the Igorot tribe, because as someone who comes from a different part of the Philippines, I have to admit that I don't know really much about the Igorot tribe. I actually didn't know that it's such a big region in the Philippines, 3 regions in the Philippines, and that there's actually different cultures and different rituals from the different regions. I think there are 3 stories that I think are where I can very much relate to, and I found very interesting. The Unstoppables of Rick Kuyob, because it really talks about the struggles that a lot of us migrants are going through here in the Philippines, that in Europe, that it feels like we should just go on and on and on with working and supporting families back home and supporting here. And I really like that part where he said, if you really want to understand us, you have to be unstoppable, because it's very hard to explain to Europeans or to other nationalities our culture and the struggles that we are facing here if you don't have, for example, generational wealth, or you don't have proper health insurance to cover you and your family. That's why you have to be unstoppable in working throughout your whole life and maybe after your pension. I also really like the story of Lorena from Switzerland about searching her identity in that country. And because she also talked about a term that I think very much describes the Filipinos' search for identity in Europe. She calls it cultural starvation. Because just as I was telling Lorena earlier, when you come here, you are not busy searching for your identity. You are searching for, you will first want to assimilate, to understand your new culture, your new home, that desire to be accepted. So you're not busy searching for connections with your own tribe or from the people that you, or from fellow Filipinos. And I think I especially, although I'm not from any tribe in the Philippines, I think I especially understand that it's quite difficult to find that connection just with regular Filipinos, because if you grew up with rituals and cultures, and especially the greeneries of the Cordillera region, then also other Filipinos would not be able to understand these rituals. So I'm very happy for her that she was able to finally found her own identity, and a very strong identity as an Igorot and a Filipino and a Swiss. And especially enjoyed the articles that how they call it, from London, that Averil and Mark wrote, because it presents a challenge for me as a mother as well, a Filipina mother growing up in Europe. How do I transfer this identity to my child? Because now, and Averil was very honest enough that she didn't put a lot of effort, nor her parents, to teach her Tagalog. And this is also the same struggle that I'm having with my child, because my child is 5. And when they're small, they advise you to teach, to talk to them in your language, in Tagalog or Cebuano, or maybe the Igorot language. But when you're a new mother, you're not really concerned about those things. You just want to sleep and feed your child and do your work. I go to the office and work at the same time. So you are not concerned about passing on your culture to your child. But now that I'm also trying to teach her Tagalog, she can just say no, because it's very inconvenient for her, because she'd rather not go through that difficult phase of learning a new language and or speaking 3 languages at the same time. So and then Mark also wrote about a very interesting article when he said that, yes, usually our way of passing on our culture to our children is just follow how does it go? Just follow the steps, or gayahin mo na lang. And I appreciate that he made a comparison that Western educated children, you have to give them your tradition in a more systematic way, and not just tell them, sige, gayahin mo na lang yung dance, yung ritual dances, or because I think he mainly talks about the dance and the music. And it's an eye-opening for me as a parent as well, raising a second generation Filipino European. Because yes, we have to consider these things when we want to pass on our culture and teach our children about Filipinos. I think the only thing that I am missing in the book is that I find that the poems written in the Igorot language should have been highlighted. I don't know, maybe in a different book, because it's a language that I'm not familiar, and the translation is beautiful. And I think it's also very interesting. There is already a momentum when you're reading about Igorots in Europe. There's already a momentum for me as a Filipino who is not from the Igorot tribe to learn more about the culture. Because I think dito sa Europe, we want to, the desire to get to know more about the cultures and tribe of the Philippines are more than when we are still living in the Philippines, because we're busy with other things. But now, you know that there is this big organizations of Igorot in the Philippines. So for me, I become more interested in learning about it. And the language, I think, is, of course, in so many stories here, the language of the poems or the poems are not very highlighted. So I think it would be a nice project next time to collect these poems and yes, sell it to the Filipinos, not just to Igorots, because I think it's a very beautiful language. I think that's all I have to say about it. Quite a lot, actually. So thank you for the opportunity of reviewing the book, and congratulations to everyone who participated.
Wow, thank you so much, Miss Des Aguilar. Actually, you've pointed out a lot of things, and I'm sure that everyone here would agree when I say that I'm so happy to hear that you kind of relate to the stories that were written on the book. That means to say that really we are all connected, we all have the same experiences, and that we don't have to segregate or divide ourselves from other tribes, other groups, or even the Filipino community, right? Because like what you have said, oh, I could relate to this and I could relate to that, even if you are not belonging to the Igorot tribe. And we are really so happy. Thank you also for the feedback. I think you pointed out about the poems that would be really nice to work on next time. So thank you.
I really like that it sort of awakens a desire in me to get to know more about the culture. Because we learn it from elementary or maybe a little bit from high school, but there's really no deeper education to get to know the tribes in the Philippines. And reading this book in Europe, relating to the stories, I think it really awakens your desire to get to know more about the Philippines.
Thank you again, Dessa. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So next, after that very insightful feedback from Dessa, we would like to also hear from another younger generation. Yes, from Miss Marilyn Velasco Magón. She's born in USA, but she moved with her family to Vienna, Austria in 2000, where she grew up. And she also studied at University of Vienna, and she finished a bachelor degree in journalism and communication science. And now she's doing her master's. I mean, she worked as a camera woman a woman and a video journalist for multiple Austrian broadcasters. Good for you. And she has also been very active in the Filipino diaspora in Austria, with being a part of the core team for the first ever Filipino arts and culture festival called Kubo. Oh yeah, like the Kubo, the Bahay Kubo. That is in the beginning of September. And now being a community communicator for the city government of Vienna, with the goal to build a bridge between the Filipino community and the city of Vienna. So today she is working in the public relations department for the Union of Youth Centers in Vienna, and is an active member of her group Rambach Austria. So yeah, we would love to hear from you also, Marilyn. Thank you so much for being with us today. Marilyn?
Yeah, you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry I'm late. I was running late on public transport.
Fine, it happens.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the invite. I would also like to thank Ate Wendy first for inviting me in the first place, because only due to these invites, I think a lot of younger people are actually getting the opportunity to get to know about these kinds of projects, because other else we wouldn't even know about it, or maybe through our parents. So that's the only ways of communication we get, I guess. I got the book, I think last weekend. It was shipped to me, so I didn't really have enough time to read through all of the stories. So I only read some snippets of it and walked through some chapters. And I think it's really great that there's actually this book happening, because it's a very sustainable, sorry, English is not my first language, a sustainable way and platform to of preserving stories and experience of us Igorots, especially for the, I guess, in this book, it's only mainly the first generation of Igorots, I would say, or the elders, because for us younger people, or not younger people, but the next generations who grew up or were born or grew up here in Europe, there are not a lot of platforms where we can communicate or learn about these stories from the elders. The only ways to learn about or hear about the stories is when they talk to us. But there's a lot of miscommunications happening, or like the fact that we don't speak any Filipino language just makes it really hard to communicate, actually. So what I think is really, really great about this book is that it's written in English. So that way that me and other allies, maybe, and people who are interested, can actually read into this whole thing. Like my boyfriend, for example, he's Austrian, he can read the book too. And I think that's very, very important, that there's like a main language that we all understand. And what I read through, I don't know which story it was, or which chapter, they also explained some terms, like the word diaspora, or like some Tagalog or Filipino words. I think it's really great that you try loosely translate it too, because for me, for example, I don't speak any Filipino language, so for me it's really hard to understand them. So I think it's really great that you explain it in one sentence, make it really easy to read. So for me, it's not too hard to get into the stories, actually. And I think for me, what I just read just a few of it, but it's really easy to understand, easy to read. It's not too heavy, like academic. You know, a lot of Filipino cultural books are very academically. So I think that doesn't really cater the interests of a lot of people, even though I studied in university, I'm not that into the academics. And I think that's really great. And what, so I think that's, yeah, great. Oh, I wrote some notes down, sorry. Sorry, I lost the thread. I read also a few stories which I really resonates, was from, I think, from Ireland. I forgot what she's, the author is called, Judith. She wrote about how she met a little bit of her husband and they got married in Ireland. I think that's a really nice story when it comes to biracial or international couples or like relationships, because that's some topic or a theme that's very, I guess, new for the elders, but something that's very normal for us next generations. Because, for example, my boyfriend is Austrian, the boyfriend from my sister is Romanian, and a lot of Filipinos in Austria are in relationships with other nationalities. And for us, it's very common, kind of, and normal to have these biracial relationships. And I think it's really great to read. There's also one in Ireland. Also, I didn't know there were Filipinos also in Ireland, I guess. So for me, that was also interesting to read, actually, about it. Yeah, so I think it's really great that, yeah, as I said, it's really easy to read. I really love it. I'm looking forward to read more about this book. I didn't have enough time. I think you can really see that there are a lot of active countries, like the Netherlands. They have like the table of contents is like a full page. So they have a lot to say, and I really like that there's a lot of countries mentioned, a lot who participated in this project. I was just interested if there's maybe countries like from the south of Europe, like Serbia, Bosnia, like the south east of Europe, if there are also Filipinos who are maybe, or Igorots even, I don't know, who are maybe interested to tell their stories, because I think they have a very different experience than we have in, let's say, Western Central Europe. So that's really great. Wait, I have some notes, sorry. Yeah, so I'm looking actually forward to read it, and I'm looking forward because I read in an email that Tita Yvonne is planning a second edition of a book. And I'm very interested actually to participate too, because I think I'm one of the next generations who grew up fully in the Europe, and I didn't grow up within the Filipino community. So my experience in finding my identity is very, very different to all of you, I guess. Also because I'm still in the process of finding it, I would say. So I think I would love to like share my experience about it. And I know a lot of fellow Igorots in my age who live here in Vienna, who are not connected to any Igorot organization, who are maybe interested to participate. Like I have a friend, she's queer, so she's talking a lot about LGBTQIA+ topics. So I think that's also something that's never talked about in the Igorot or in the Filipino diaspora, and I think they have a really unique stories maybe to tell, and how to combine it maybe with finding her Igorot roots. So yeah, what else do I say? I think it's also great that this book is like going from past events like the ICB in 2017 or the excursion to Hallstatt in 2013. That's almost 10 years ago in Austria. I think that's great that it's at least written somewhere, so it's easier for us in the next generations to give it forward for them to read, because or else all these stories will be forgotten or not documented in any way possible. So I think it's great and very important to have these kinds of projects like books or videos or magazines whatsoever to preserve some of these memories and stories, because if I'm thinking forward into the future, I'm not sure how I'm gonna teach my kids about the Filipino or Igorot culture. I'm not sure yet, but I think this book and the more books are coming are playing a big part of it. So thank you so much for inviting me. I rambled a little bit, so sorry for that. And yeah, that's for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. That's actually refreshing to hear from a young generation like you, and we're so glad to know that, like with Dessa, you kind of also like find it like very important to hear stories like these. And indeed, we have written it in the introduction of the book that very often I will read the introduction. Very often we read books that tell about us, about who we are, but we seldom read stories about us written by us. And it's really nice to hear from you that you find it indeed also different and kind of better to have to read the literature like this that are not so academically written, right? Because they're kind of more like very formal, and it doesn't really reach to you on a personal level. And that's really nice to hear. And thank you also for your feedback when you mentioned about how about getting the other probably indigenous people or Igorot from other countries, like from the south of Europe or east of Europe or those other countries in Europe. That's really interesting to have maybe like what you've mentioned. We're planning for a volume 2, And it's so nice to hear that you're very interested in participating. So yes, do invite all the other younger generations to write. Yeah, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Myra.
everyone.
Yeah. Okay, so while we are, what do you call that? Absorbing all the feedback and insights given to us by Marilyn and Dessa, including the introduction and opening from Yvonne and Kristine. Let's have a bit of a break by watching a song performed by Mercedes de Wallen. She's a member and constituent of MABIKAs Foundation. She would like to perform live, but just in case or technical difficulties, so she recorded it for us. So I'm gonna play it now, yeah? So do enjoy while drinking your cup of coffee.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Dinayay kanta at kantaan kailan to ko ay Juni Ribagayan from Kibongan, Benguet, but now based in New Zealand. Title na kat Umus-usdong si Kabunyan. Parang data ko amin.
Thank you, Mercedes. Really, really thank you for also spending the time to render this song for us. And it's really, really very timely and fitting to our to our book title and what we have written all about, because her song, for those who didn't understand, it's all about life, like life, no matter how hard it is what it is. And no matter how hard it is, there's always hope. And like what we've said in our title, yes, there are travails, there are ups and downs, but in the end, we will always have triumphs. So basically, that's what the song is all about. So once again, thank you so much, Mercedes, for sharing your beautiful voice with us. Now, I would like to give the floor to Miss Lorena Clerc to take it away for the next part of our book launch session. Lorena.
Thank you, Myra. And I think your job is not yet finished. You will still do the timing later. Anyway, Grüezi miteinander. That's how they say hello, everyone in Swiss German. So now we're going to move to the reading of excerpts from the articles. But before that, I'd like to congratulate all the 35 authors who have shared a part of themselves in writing the book. As one who comes from the academe, I have actually realized in the process that it's very easy to write, or not very easy, it's much easier to write about concepts, about topics, about I don't know, philosophies, or rather than talking about yourself. So this has been quite a struggle for me personally. And that's why I have great respect for all the authors who have taken on the call to bring out the stories into the world. So without much ado, we're going to start with Mr. Rick Kuyob from Belgium, a Kankanai.
My article, Unstoppable, or The Unstoppable. I would say, look, if you want to find out how we are surviving, you need to be unstoppable, and that's true. But going further, you can also say, you wait, don't dismiss what I am saying. I can't, what you am telling you now is not enough. So that means, and then on and off, we have this story of up and down of migrants in Belgium. And then when I met this person, like Mr. Bright, B-R-I-T-E, he said, oh, look at the bright side, look on the bright side. And that is something that we can also say bright. And then they call this person Mr. Bright because there are a lot of stories about him that is that oh, this person was controlled by the police and almost deported to the Philippines. But then he was known after 2-3 days that he's still in Belgium. And so they say, oh, he is really bright, meaning the bright, that is an adjective, meaning intelligent, or yes, that's bright. So he was baptized as Mr. Bright. I met him, I have encountered with him, and he was the one who told me, look at the bright side, look always on the bright side. That was his favorite phrase. And then it goes on with the story that really we work on it. And finally, we had this regularizations in Belgium. I do not know if it had happened in all other countries in Europe, but certainly we have two waves of regularization in Belgium, and we have worked on it. And many of us benefited. So as a conclusion of saying, looking at the bright side, I would quote that no matter what, our families have fallen in love with the cities of our host country, that is Brussels. We were and very much part of the unstoppables. So we realized that we were unstoppable, and we are still unstoppable, and maybe still in the future we are unstoppable. That means we do not stop on where we are. We continue and we keep looking for means and ways to adapt and survive in society where we are, and also with our families, siblings, nieces and nephews in the Philippines. So that's really unstoppable. And that's what I want. And I hope people would like to read it and say, identify or relate themselves with the experience. So that's what I want to say. And thank you for this. I would like to say thank you for the editors who have been editing this book, working hard, back and forth, and stubborn just to have the book published. Thank you.
You're welcome, Manong Rick. As he says, let's be unstoppable. And we always have to look at the bright side of life. With all the many things that we have to juggle here in our host countries, let's remain unstoppable and positive and always looking at the bright side of life. Thank you, Manong Rick. Now we move to France with Kristine Kawi-Gorans, also a Kankanaay.
Hello, yes, I'm Kristine from France. And I wrote the article I called it Where It Began. So I'll just read to you an excerpt from the article. It's sort of from the middle, actually. Where is that now? Sorry, I thought I put my sorry. Okay. It says, before I left the Philippines, that is, friends of my parents tried to quell my excitement about going abroad by making me see the reality that abroad was not at all a bed of roses. But I just turned 19, and to me, everything was an adventure worth taking, be it a bed of roses or a blanket of thorns. The Manila-London direct Philippine Airlines flight was half empty, and I had a whole 3 seats to lay on, which was great for a 16-hour flight. The cabin crew looked like models, cascading along the aisle and serving me delicious food. The clouds below looked like giant, soft and fluffy cotton balls, and occasionally they would clear to make me able to peep at what's far below. Water after water, then dry, arid lands, then vegetated mountains. At night, cities looked like vast, Christmassy lit places. It was truly a wonderful first flight experience for a solo teenage traveler. When I got to London, the immigration officer asked me, "When are you commencing your classes?" That threw me off board because I did not know. I told him that I needed to take a test before I can apply to training institutions. Only then can I start my classes. I told him that it's a test called a DC test, specifically an IQ test. And I told him that I came early to England to revise for this test. And the officer chuckled and half mockingly repeated, "You have to revise for an IQ test?" I remember being offended by that, although I now smile at the memory. Anyway, he stamped my passport and he let me through. London was exactly what I've read from the books in the Baguio Library. Busy, fast, cold, and much of the time, wet and gray November weather. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Kristine.
Sadly.
That was very lively and very enthusiastically read.
Thank you.
Opening up our senses to see what you are saying, to feel what you were feeling at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Long time ago that was. Thank you.
Yeah. So good that you can still relive that experience, that same emotion of a day so long ago already.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now we go to the Netherlands. We start with Manong Cesar Taguba and Ibanoy.
First of all, I would like to say that the book that we are reviewing gives a face and a voice to more than 250,000 Cordillerans working or living abroad. The book is also a living testimony of the resilience and affirmation of their Igorot cultural values, which keeps them going. It is also significant that most of the contributors and the book publication committee members are women, which I think speaks highly of the Cordillera women, their capacity, and their commitment. So I say, abiyag dagiti kababaian, ito Cordillera. I would like to share a part of the poem that I wrote entitled Exodus. To me, it speaks of the commitment and concern that I have, and as someone who is growing old, I think I'm the most senior in the group in this Zoom meeting today. I feel that there's so much confidence that I have in the future, as well as in the desire of our people to be respected, and above all, to affirm the right to self-determination. Let me read down a part of the poem. Exodus. Torture, imprisonment, and cruel death, the pain of disappearances, the haughty laughter of the oppressors, the scandalous feast that impunity haunts me. Rivers, lakes are drying up, draining the river of life. The wealth of the sea, the land, and social wealth are shamelessly, greedily appropriated in the name of development and super profits for a few. I despair not. Our big no to dehumanization and big yes to freedom, justice, and lasting peace make us revolutionaries and prophets, an integral part of the whole of creation, breaking free to greet the dawn of the new day. Our breakthrough is in the offing. Come, tarry not, join our song, join our dance and march to liberation. Cast away fear and trembling. The Lord of the dance and salvation, and our revolutionary forefathers and ancestors are with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Manong Cesar. Thanks also for first beginning with a broad overview of the Cordillerans living abroad. I didn't know that we have 250,000 Cordillerans in the diaspora.
Yeah.
And yeah, you have already brought up the challenge yourself about the Cordillera men joining the book committee. And to be more active.
Yeah.
And present, right?
Yeah.
The poem was also beautiful, as Miss Aguilar earlier said. It's a beautiful language.
Yeah.
And the theme that you were talking about is speaks of the struggles that we have been facing as indigenous peoples for so many years, and unfortunately until now. So thank you for bringing this up, and this will add to more awareness and sensibilizing our Igorot, especially the second generation also, who have not had or have not experienced this. Also for non-indigenous peoples to be empathetic of our struggles. So thank you. And we move to Raquel de Weerd, also from the Netherlands, who is an IFGAO.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Well, when Madam Yvonne asked me to write something about myself, I thought what shall I gonna say? So I was really thinking, okay, it's okay to write something about my discovering myself through running, and that was accepted. So I just want to say that for me, it's running is not a competition, but it's therapy. It's there where I found myself. Every runner has its own story. So my story is I have a very difficult time in 2008. So I decided to do something. In Europe, you have got a lot of help, but I discovered myself also extending my effort to help children from other countries or also in the Philippines. In short, I'm also helping people through my energy, patients, cancer patients. So if you read my story, it's more like my achievements, but I'm I'm very proud of myself that I came up to the problem I encountered with when I lost my baby. Well, I just want to give some, actually in 2015, it's not in 2005 because I did not start running yet in 2005. Actually, that was in 2015. I went to Thailand to help these children away from child trafficking and child prostitution. And from there, I guess Deza made also mine article about my mission in Thailand. That was in 2015. Thank you so much, Deza, for that. I ran half marathon in Thailand. Our goal was raise money against human trafficking and child prostitution. Twice I did also the Ropa run from Germany to Rotterdam, the Netherlands. Recently, that was 2 years ago, my team was able to raise more than 20,000 euros for cancer patients. This was the toughest and most emotional races I ever did so far, because it's I'm also a cancer survivor. I mean, one of my family member, my brother, died of cancer brain tumor. So it's also one of my drive to run for them. Mm-hmm. That's it. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to inspire other Filipinos to be more fit in running or other kind of exercises.
Thank you, Rachel. That is a very incredible advocacy you have, and the works that you are doing, not just for yourself and your family, but for children who are disadvantaged. We are happy and proud that you are doing it on our behalf. Yeah, continue, make us proud. And I also am a bit touched because you are the only Ifugao in the group. Maybe if you could encourage other people from your tribe to join us, that would be even more wonderful.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Now we have Myra Colis, who is also from the Netherlands, and Ibaloy.
Thank you, Lorena. So now it's my turn. I would just like to read an excerpt from one of the 2 articles I've contributed. The title is Cultural Roots, Why It Matters Even When You've Moved On. December 10, 2016 marked a historical day for the indigenous people like me from the Philippine Cordillera region in the Netherlands. 40 of us, including our European loved ones, gathered that day for the first time to reminisce our ethnic origin in lieu with our celebration of the Christmas season. And at that time, I found the indigenous me alive again. So as the day unfolds, I realize how much I've missed and neglected to reconnect with my deeper roots, my indigenous identity, and dressing myself and seeing my fellow Igorots in our ethnic attires, singing the Cordillera hymn and our own wearing and our traditional songs together, as well as listening to the homey sound of the gongs and sulibao being played, and watching others dance our cultural dances gave me an overwhelming wave of nostalgia. In my years of country hopping, I find people's individual and cultural differences amazing, that I enjoyed adapting to every new environment, culture, mindset, and values. But little did I know that I'm slowly forgetting my own, if I'm not losing it. So our Igorot dances and steps have meanings, but I can't remember a single one. Despite the fact that I used to be in a cultural performing group back then, and as we sang one of the famous local songs, Nan Layad, Nan Likatan, I felt deeply ashamed of myself for not understanding what some of those words or some of those local words even meant. And I'm proud of where I come from, but forgetting what it's like to be an Igorot doesn't justify that statement of saying I'm proud to be an Igorot. So having the opportunity to relive my indigenous identity with fellow Igorots, whom I share the same cultural heritage with, was an eye-opening experience. And I've realized that no matter how much you've moved on with your life, it matters big time to hold on to your cultural roots, regardless of any social, economic, or technological advances there are. So yeah, hold on to it. There's no greater reward than finding yourself again just by doing so. So
Thank you, Myra. Beautifully read. I think we can all resonate with her, like has been already mentioned by earlier, is the going back to ourselves, going back to our roots. So we move to another Kankanai from Netherlands, Miss Christina Moncado. Manang Christine, we cannot hear you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'm gonna read a part of one of my articles, Travails and Triumphs of an Igorota in the Netherlands. It's a long one, but I'm gonna read only the conclusion. It says, with all the failures and successes that I experienced living in Amsterdam, I will not exchange it for any other city. I learned to love the city and the people as a whole, from the beautiful tulips to the delicious cheese to riding in the trams. The hush and buzz keeps the city alive. The mesmerizing canals are uniting the different places of the city, but most of all, Amsterdam has been and will always be a melting pot of different cultures and races. Indeed, I was very lucky to find my soul in Amsterdam, but not lucky enough to find my soulmate. So furthermore, read the book. That's all. Thank you.
That's very nicely said. You did not find yourself, but you found your soulmate. Yes, soul searching is a continuous process, I believe, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now we have the last from the Netherlands, our very dear mother, Yvonne Belen. Yvonne Belen. She identifies herself as a Bonto.
The reasons I chose these excerpts is many times when I ask our, we say, compatriots, they say, I do not know how to write. So that's why I told my story. And I even told my story from the failings, the failed course I had, and then the 1.1 from a 5 to a 1.1. Anyway, from my essay, My Journey as a Nonfiction Writer, I said, no one is born a writer. Writers are made, so am I, and so could anyone be. From my beginnings in writing in the highland of the Philippine Cordillera to the flatland of the Netherlands, there will be many more subjects to write on. My writing journey will continue, and I'm glad it will. From my bio, I said, my present passion is writing concepts for book projects, especially for Igorot Cordillerans in Europe. I dream of these books being published. And finally, from authors' reason for writing their stories, I said, if with my essay, I have inspired others to write their stories, I have fulfilled my mission. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Manang Yvonne. The passion is, how do you call this, glowing, and we could all feel that, and we're very lucky to really have you as our mother, our coordinator of the whole Igorot community in Europe.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we move to those who are joining us from the Philippines, who were at one point have joined us here in Europe. So we start with Miss Conchita Pooten, who unfortunately is not able to join us due to technical problems, but her daughter is here to read on her behalf. Averil?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to read my mom. So she presents her apologies from Philippines. I'm just going to read the first and second and then last paragraph of her poem, Arrivals. Arriving off the plane in 1971, touching ground with a nervous tinge of excitement, an eagerness, awaiting new beginnings, yet homesickness for days left behind. Arriving into new work settings, passing the nursing board, examination board exams, and being installed into staff nurse positions on the wards of different hospitals, yet thinking of my family needing my support. Arriving into married life, raising my own young family, being active in my Igorot advocacies, yet thinking of the future for my children. Arriving into retirement, sitting back and relaxing on the veranda of my porch, feeling the cool tropical breeze against the peaceful sound of running water from the Asin River, yet thinking of my grandchildren in the UK. Reflecting on my life, giving thanks for a life well lived and travelled, and looking forward to many more arrivals and quality years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Averil. We're very fortunate to read from someone who has been here from 1971, who has begun her family life, and now we see you. Like, from you, we also see our future, right? Thank you for that. And now we move to the next, Miss Ruth Tindaan. Akan Kanay.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening. I'm going to read the maybe first and last paragraph of the essay that I wrote, which is titled On the European Trail of Ancestors and a Hero. While I was working on a postgraduate degree in London from 2014 to 2018, I had a chance to visit some places in Europe which had particular significance to me for two reasons. First, these were locations of 19th and 20th century world exhibitions where our Igorot ancestors participated. And second, these were places where our national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal, lived and pursued his academic and patriotic endeavors. I consider these places as points where two facets of my own identity converge, that of my ethnic belonging as Igorot and my national identity as Filipino. And the last paragraph. After having earned my degree, I have returned to Baguio to render return service to my university. Memories of my sojourns in Europe hearten the cold and foggy days in this mountain home. But more importantly, those travels in Europe following the lives of our ancestors and our national hero have made me become so thoroughly proud of being both Igorot and Filipino, an identity that converges in a legacy of courage, determination, and a sense of adventure. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Ruth. Miss Ruth has actually been the former director of Cordillera Studies at the University of the Philippines. We're very lucky to have you in our group. And yeah, thank you for bringing out the sad part of our history also as Igorots, the exhibitions, and of course the things that we also have to be proud of, like of our national hero who has been here, studied in Europe, and assimilated well. Thank you. And we move to Miss Maureen Belen Loste, also from the joining us from the Philippines, and also a Bontoc.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for it's through my sister Yvonne that I was invited to join the writers, no? And because I was able to join the ICBE in Vienna, Austria in 2015. I don't know the number when how many consultations, no, and the last one in Amsterdam in 2019, and she encouraged me to write about my stay or my travels in Europe. So I'm going to read about the ICBE, no, and it's actually the last part of the article that I wrote. The ICBE as a representative group of the Cordillera diaspora in Europe. It may be prudent or wise to use the migration data portal's definition of diaspora to describe the Igorot community gathered by the Assembly of Cordillera People in Europe, ACPE, or ACPE in 2002, which later evolved and expanded into the ICBE. The Igorots are a distinct community of indigenous peoples who identify with their ancestral home and maintain their cultural, linguistic, historical, spiritual links with the homeland. Each individual, including foreign-born children, grouped into country organizations, display a, quote, sense of kinship with diaspora members in other countries, unquote. Now, there is this thing that you want to do, like having a second edition of the book, and I would propose to write on this. This is something I found soon, no? 2 years ago, 2 decades ago, the theme of the ACPE, or the Assembly of Cordillera People in Europe, is still relevant today. The theme is strengthen the Cordillera community in Europe and foster solidarity with the Cordillera people's aspiration for life, land, and self-determination. I suppose this would be a very relevant topic that can be discussed at this time. No, and it can be included in the second edition of the book. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manang Maureen, for posing the challenge for the next volume. And we'd also like to thank you actually for providing, how do you call this, a definition of important terms that we actually might have forgotten to have talked about in the book committee. We're very lucky that you have given us the insights on what diaspora actually mean, because in the academe and maybe for us who are more familiar with these terms, it's not a problem, but due to the variety of audience that we have, there is actually a need to discuss these terminologies, and we're lucky that you were there to bring that out on our behalf. So now that's me. I am here in Switzerland and I identify as a Kankanai, although I have been raised in Bontoc during my primary and secondary years. So I'm going to read my text, an excerpt from my text entitled An Igorot's Quest for Identity in Switzerland. Just on page 269, the last paragraph, if you are opening your books. It was my education in the humanities that prompted me to squarely face the self-imposed racial inferiority complex that I brought along with me, something that I believed also plagued many other Filipinos who go abroad. I would later learn that what I was going through was called internalized oppression. This concept described how I was conditioned to feel lesser than other races from the Philippines' long history of colonization. My Filipino seniors, who later served as my mentors, would agree that this has been one of the obstacles in unleashing their potential. I saw the need to learn how to talk with whites as equals and to see them neutrally, neither superior nor inferior. Finishing my MA at the University of Zurich has opened doors of opportunities. I felt that whenever I told people that I finished my studies in Switzerland, there was suddenly a change in how I was regarded. I was more treated as an equal by the locals. Conversely, some Filipinos would say, "Wow, a master's degree?" as if it has never crossed their minds that it was actually possible to study in the local university as an immigrant. It then became my advocacy to encourage migrant women to empower themselves through further education locally. So thank you. I don't know how to comment on my own text, so you read it further and maybe give me some feedback if you want.
Very nice, Lorena. I think you felt also very emotional while reading it. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you for stepping up, Myra. Okay, now we move to the United Kingdom. We get back to you, Averil Pooten Watan, who also identifies as a Kankanay.
Thank you. So my article, my contribution was highlighting experiences of second generation Igorots in Europe. And it was an article that we read in the ICPI consultation held in Austria in 2015. I'm just going to read the prologue, actually. It has been 6 years since I wrote the above article. However, the closing line, which was, "What legacy do you want the next generation of Igorots, be it second, third, fourth, to remember you for?" The closing line remains pertinent for this book, as we are now documenting the experiences of Igorots in Europe. In the past 6 years, my husband and family have done as much as we possibly can to ensure the next generation, which is my own children's generation, remains exposed to Igorot culture. We've organized Filipino language classes for our children, conducted cultural dance and music workshops, coordinated the 12th IIC and International Igorot Consultation in Hawaii, and attended the ICPI consultation in Amsterdam. I suppose for my own posterity, I hope that my children remember with this book that they are rooted and connected to a culture with a rich, deep history. They are from ancestors that came before them, who paved the way so that they could thrive. Thank you.
Thank you for that. It is actually through you, the second generation, and Miss our reviewer earlier, Miss Marily, yeah, that we see hope. There is hope in that. No matter how we are far away from our own culture of origin, there is still hope that our tradition, our values, our identity will thrive because of people like you who come back to us, who are more active in the transmission and the maintenance of our Igorot culture. I also have read in your article that it is through one of the Igorot gatherings that you met your husband, right? Yes.
Yes, correct. It was the first IIC, the first International Igorot Consultation in 1995. That's how I met Mark. So, you know, the diaspora is so big, and you know these gatherings that we do together in Europe, across the world. they're building bridges, they're making connections, they're allowing those of us who are second, third, second generation living outside of the Philippines, who will never be living in the Philippines at this point, to meet with other Igorots and other Cordillerans. So there's always hope.
Yeah, there's always hope. So we continue these ICBE consultations, and we hope that there will also be intermarriages between Igorots from many second generations of other countries, right? Okay, so we now have the last from Ireland, James Leroy Quintin, who I think identifies as both Kankanaay and Ibaloy.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm both Ibaloy and Kankanaay, but Benguet. My mother is Kankanaay from Kapangan, and my father is an Ibaloy from La Trindad. So to the other Ibaloys, shakal kat John Ibadoy gam siya ay si babain tayo. But anyway, thank you very much. I would like to commend first the committee for pushing the book through. I'm pretty sure it was a very hard endeavor. To Auntie Yvonne, who's never failing to send us our emails, our texts, our WhatsApp. Keep going, Auntie. Even though we don't respond, we're reading it. Okay, so the reason that I wrote what I wrote was, well, one of the reasons is I wrote before an article about how we Igorots met up here in Ireland. And so I thought I'd write this time about what Ireland is, because I think we've been very lucky here in Ireland, and the Filipinos in general, and us Igorots, and me in particular, that Ireland has been a very welcoming country. And I think the first thing that they tried to explain to us is we were never a rich country. That's what they said. Like, we have a history as well, and that's what kind of made us more endearing to them as well. But anyway, that's why I wrote a lot of the part of the things that I wrote was about Ireland, but also my story as well. So my article is called Our Ireland. Let me drink a little bit. I tried to time myself 2 minutes, but I'll try to make it short. I wrote this article to share my experiences coming to live and work in Ireland. I have also added a synopsis of Ireland and its people. Why Ireland, you ask? A small, craggy outcrop at the edge of Europe and the Atlantic. Well, it is a question I also asked myself when I was filling in my application form 20-odd years ago. One of the reasons I was encouraged, or more like coerced, to take up nursing was for the opportunity to work abroad. I guess this would be something many Filipino nurses could relate to, but it's also a testament to the quality of nursing in the Philippines. While I was studying, I was imagining which country I would try to apply to. The US, the UK, Canada, and Australia were the obvious choices. Other countries emerging at the time that were beginning to employ Filipino nurses were New Zealand and Israel, but nobody ever mentioned or knew of Ireland as a place to emigrate or work in. Most of the information I had about Ireland at the time was from the movies such as Far and Away with Tom Cruise, or In the Name of the Father with Daniel Day-Lewis. Now, I recommend watching the latter. But by the way, who doesn't love Tom Cruise, eh? I heard of Ireland as well because of the popular Irish bands at the time, like U2, the Cranberries, the Course, and of course, the boy bands Boyzone and Westlife. I find the Irish people kind-hearted, generous, and fun-loving. They are always up for the crack, which is a slang term for a good time, ready for a chat, and always greet you hello. Sometimes, though, they are self-deprecating, which to me is a poignant sign of the remnant of a people who has been oppressed or marginalized. This is weirdly familiar, and somehow this logic makes sense to me. My friend Dave, who is an Igorot, once said, the Irish are like the Igorots of Europe. Up to now, the Irish, I feel, are a little misunderstood. They are portrayed to be these wisecracking people that seem to drink too much. There seems to be a change now in the younger generation, which is definitely palpable. The younger generation, it seems, have more swagger and confidence, probably having grown up in an environment that has less of the hang-ups of the previous generation. Thank you.
Thank you, James. It looks that you have really found a real home in Ireland, where you could identify with this, with the struggles of the people, based also on your background as an indigenous person. Yeah, I also have heard that you study nursing so that you can go abroad. Who didn't, right? Many of us growing up, we have, I think, heard that many times from our parents, like the most possible way to leave the Philippines or to go abroad is to study nursing, which is still, I think, prevalent up to the present time. Which is actually good, and at the same time not so good, because other professions are being forgotten. We don't raise scientists. We keep other professions are being neglected because everyone wants to go to nursing. But anyway, the beauty of this is that with all 35 authors sharing different kinds of stories, different kinds of experiences from different countries, we cater to all kinds of audiences. I think our audiences are also very varied. Like from the Cordillera, there's one thing that binds us, but we are all different. We have so many differences. I mean, even with our tribes, we are same indigenous peoples, but we have distinct differences as well. So I think this will also speak of the kind of book that we have produced, and the kind of book that we will still be producing when we will encourage many more writers to join us. So next, we'll have Averil Pooten Watan again to tell us about the book's hopes, outcomes from the editors.
Before that, Lorena, Jane is also with us today, and also Evangeline. I'm not sure if they would like to read an excerpt from their book.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Did we miss Jane? Jane is joining us from
Germany. Jane
from yes.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Jane Morgan Klee from Germany. Are you with us? Oh.
Okay. If it doesn't work, maybe Evangeline.
Hi everyone. I'm sorry, I'm in the car. I look like a ghost. I think in my silhouette. We are traveling. I don't have the book with me to read an excerpt from, but thank you very much. And it's great that we're having this launch. Yes, sorry I couldn't read from my work, but I'd like to congratulate everyone, and I'll take this opportunity to show here also like a silhouette. Hi. We're very happy and we're very proud that we as a group have launched this book. Archie is here with us as well, one of the authors as well of the book, and we would like to congratulate everybody for the successful launch of this book.
Thank you very much, Evangeline, and to Grace and Archie, who are with you there. Thank you very much for still trying your best to join us, no matter how difficult maybe the connection is while you are traveling. Okay, so we move to Wendy.
Thank you. I'm just getting, so if you don't see me, I'm flipping through my notes, back to my notes. So the next portion is to talk about the book's outcomes. And just to give a bit of context, the book committee met sometime in May this year, and we all got to share a little bit of our hopes for the book. And a combination of the excerpts from that meeting were that some of the hopes were that we would get the book done before the end of the third quarter of this year, which was what we did, where we are now. Some said that I hope this is the beginning of something to inspire others to write their stories. And you'll hear at the end the next call to action. So I think we've done that too. We'll publish the book within this year, and we could begin with another book project after this is published. I think we've done that hope too. There's another call to action at the end of this, at the launch. Also to respond to a resolution from the 13th Igorot International Consultation in Honolulu, Hawaii, which is to research more about our Indigenous culture within the Austronesian diaspora. We believe this book will help towards that resolution, and we wanted to build resources for the next generation who search for their roots and seek their identity. I think this is also another part of that hope that's been realized. Somebody also said there should be books written by us, and we all move forward for others to read the book. So that in a nutshell was our discussions, our hopes from the 27th of May meeting of the editors earlier this year. Thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations to all of us for having met all that we have hoped for, as Wendy has mentioned. Now, as has been mentioned earlier, also there are books or individuals who have donated to institutions to make how do you call this, a wider reach to our audience as possible. So our priority was to donate to institutions where more than one individual would be able to get access to it. So to tell us more about this, we ask Ms. Kristine Kawi-Gorans.
Yes, thank you, Lorena. It is heartwarming to know that several buyers have pledged to make book donations to libraries of schools, universities, and museums in different places back in our homeland, and also to associations back here in Europe, or simply give to friends as gifts. So may I present to you the recipients of these donations. Because of lack of time, I probably won't be able to mention all the different institutions. I'll try, but also it is worth noting that the following are just the recorded ones. There are possibly more being donated elsewhere. So we start with Baguio. University of Baguio will get a copy. Museum of Igorot Cultures and Arts at SLU, UP Baguio Library, as well as Baguio City Public Library, a copy for Pines City Colleges, and University of the Cordillerans, St. Louis Elementary and High Schools, as well as SLU Main Library. So for those books, the following people are donating them: Cesar Taguba, Yvonne Belen, Diana Baldo, and Lorena Clark. So Benguet. We have Benguet Provincial Library, Benguet State University will get one, and Cristina Moncado will give books to the following: Itogon, a high school in Itogon, and Tuding Elementary School. And Lepanto also will get books for Lepanto Elementary and High Schools, courtesy of Judith Balangyao Bowens of Ireland. Sagada in St. Mary's School, you'll find a copy there, courtesy of Diana Baldo. And Bontoc, Lorena Clark will give copies to Mountain Province State College and St. Vincent High School. And the Bontoc Public Libraries will get copies too from Joy Uluwan Ramirez. And other parts of Mountain Province, Utukan Bila High School will receive a book from Joy Uluwan Ramirez. And outside of the Cordilleras, you'll also find our copy given by Yvonne Belen to UP Library in Diliman, Quezon City. And to associations, there are books donated to MABIKAs based in Netherlands, courtesy of Christine Moncado. Lastly, I'm sure that there are those who have sent or will send a copy to friends as gifts. I, for one, will be sending a book to my school batchmate who requested a copy. And we said that when she's finished with it, she can pass on to our other batchmates. And then when they're finished with it, they can hopefully give it to a nearby public library. And that's it from me. Shadi.
That's a great idea. Like, I mean, not just institutions and libraries, but also to friends and have them pass it around. That's also, I think, how do you call this? Environmental friendly.
Yes.
But as you have also mentioned, there might be many more donations that will be coming in for schools and libraries in the coming days. And actually, at the moment, we are discussing about doing a second printing, and possibly we are not very certain yet. We might be able to get a second printing in the Philippines to cut on cost and maybe to make it more accessible to those who might not be able to have the means to pay the 20 euro cost of the book. So this one will still be discussed within the book committee. Now, we go back to Wendy for the word of thanks. Good.
So the thanks, we didn't want to highlight names because we may miss somebody, but we wanted to say to the 35 authors in the 13 countries in Europe and also those in the Philippines, to our contributors who conveyed one word of positive or negative effect in pandemic life, to the people who have come today and supported our book launch, to everyone who's bought books and donated books. Over 250, at present, 250 books have already sold out. We say a rousing thank you to every single one of you. And before I leave, I just wanted to, on behalf of the book committee editors, to say a personal heartfelt thanks to Auntie Yvonne for always having the perseverance, the dedication, and the consistency in keeping us all together. I don't think there's anyone I know that could have been as organized as you, and I really do, honestly, Auntie, very much thank you on behalf of all of us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy, also.
You're welcome, Wendy.
Yeah, what she said is really true. And our Igorot community here wouldn't be as intact as we are now without committed people like Manang Yvonne.
But may I also say something? I think it is because of the network that we built from 2002 with the Igorot Cordillera BIMAAC Europe conferences that we had, that I was able to get in touch with everyone. That I requested them to pre-order, and many of them responded. So I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you, Manang Yvonne. Also, it's been a long day, and how do you call this? My heart is so full, you know. I know yours are too. Now, for the closing remarks, let me just end it short. I'll make it as short as possible. So, what was once a dream is now a reality. Having produced the book has given us a sense of fulfillment and pride, especially that until now, and as it has been mentioned a number of times, there is not much literature available about Igorot Cordillerans in general. Thus, in our introduction on page 15, we write, self-representation in literature is scanty among Filipinos, more so for Igorot Cordillerans. Very often we read books that tell about us, about who we are, but we seldom read stories about us written by us. It is our goal to break this norm. Our stories are worth telling. It is about time we write our own stories so that readers from our origin will find someone who looks like themselves in a book they read. The way they think, speak, the values they hold, affirming their own reality. So the sense of accomplishment that we have felt in writing this book is inspiring and at the same time challenging, that we want, as has been also mentioned, to work on a second volume. And thus, we are inviting many more Igorot Cordillerans in Europe to write their stories. And also to those of you who are present here, and also those who are not, who may hear us later through the video, we are also inviting editors or members for the book committee. If you'd like to commit and to join us, we are very happy if you could join us. Together, we'll make the second volume possible.
Sorry. Yeah,
Sure.
announcement if you have.
May I invite
Dessa.
everyone to take a look at Facebook or your Instagram or social media, or visit our website, thefilipinaexpat.com. And I think, as Ms. Lorena said, we are also documenting the stories of Filipinos in Europe and other parts of the world. And I very much agree with Ms. Lorena that we might have our own version of adobo, but what binds us together in Europe is our being a Filipino abroad. And this is what connects us all of us here. So thank you very much, everyone, for inviting me, and we're very looking forward to the second volume.
Yes, thank you.
We congratulate two authors of our book publication, namely Myra and Grace, who were given award by the Adibay Award by the province of Benguet.
Oh, I thought it was Archie.
Yeah, in celebration of the Adibay Festival in Benguet province, right? Thank you also for acknowledging that. Yeah.
And I would also like to say that our Masters of Ceremonies are awardees of the, what's it again? First Filipino Women Awards.
Influential.
Way back in 2017. And
2019.
And Myra 2022.
Wow.
Thank you. There will be many more.
Yes, we'll make that happen. So that's called 100 Most Influential Women, Filipina Women in the World. Was pioneered by Lorena, the clerk, and then nominating me as second. So there will be more coming up, right? Yes.
Yes, exactly. Matago-tagot ako amin.
Hey, you can all unmute.
Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. It was really nice to see you all, and I hope you enjoyed the almost 2 hours session. Yeah. And thank you for